Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your divorce survival guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back, and now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact.
Hey everyone, welcome back. So today's episode is Therapy Dead. Today's guest, Dawn Wiggins, and I get to the heart of why Dawn says that therapy isn't always the answer, and instead how somatic and homeopathic techniques help individuals heal from various forms of trauma. Now, since we did this episode, I've kind of been working with Dawn on some homeopathic techniques for myself, and I gotta say, they're kind of working for me. We're going to do a more in-depth circling back on these things later on, but I just wanted to give you that little update because I think we talk about it a little bit in the episode. So it's been a few weeks since we recorded, and I don't know, man. So Dawn, she is a trauma-informed licensed marriage and family therapist. She's also an integrative healer who helps women turn the traumatic journey of divorce into a force for healing, self-love, and joy through a tailored blend of holistic and scientifically supported solutions. So, she works on things like EFT and EMDR and these homeopathic remedies. And, there's a lot of science that's coming out that's talk therapy isn't the way to go because trauma doesn't live in our brains. It lives in our bodies, right? This is why we do EMDR and tapping and all of these kinds of modalities, and why the somatic techniques are so much more effective. Without further ado, here's my conversation about why therapy is dead with Dawn Wiggins. Dawn, thank you so much for coming on and having this really cool conversation with us.
Oh my goodness, Kate, I am very excited.
And I'm also I've decided it's going to be a really cool conversation.
It is. It definitely is.
Totally is. So just before we hit record, you said these words to me. What did you say?
Therapy is dead.
Therapy is dead.
Yeah.
Guys,
I know.
Therapy is dead.
It's a massive statement.
That's a big
statement.
I
am a licensed therapist. I'm a licensed therapist. Have been basically since I was born. Right. Codependent childhood and that whole thing.
Oh, yeah. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Relatable, right?
Totally. I know. When I was trying to decide what I was going to do after my divorce, everyone was like, you should be a therapist. And I was like, I think I've been in recovery for that for a really long time. I'm not sure I'm allowed to be a therapist. And I did struggle with that with my coaching. Was like, how do I be a coach and also stay in my recovery, in my codependency recovery? Anyway.
Okay. So we're going to circle back to that later in the conversation per some of what we said. Right. Okay. Spoiler alert.
Good. Yeah. Perfect.
It's going to be wild.
Okay. So therapy's dead.
Yes.
Said a therapist.
Said a therapist.
Why is therapy dead, Dawn?
Yeah. Okay. So backstory. Marriage and family therapist for all the reasons, but especially because in marriage and family therapy specifically, it's a systems thinking, right? The interconnectivity of everything. And, my college, I don't know, whoever helps you pick your classes, they wanted me to do social work or mental health.
The advisor.
The advisor.
Counselor.
The
advisor.
The advisor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, no, it's systems thinking for me, the interconnectivity, right? And so, but also I had a lot of childhood trauma that was untreated at the time. And I've had a long history of various chronic illnesses, and they just kind of got worse as I got older. And so here I become this therapist and I'm doing therapy, but there's so many limitations to it. People aren't getting as better as I want them to get. And PS, I'm not getting as better as I want to get. I start to understand the history of attachment style, like, how attachment feeds into our sense of well-being or not, how it intersects with addiction recovery and trauma and all the things. And I'm trying all these different modalities, and I still have chronic disease and anxiety. And so I just want to keep learning and learning. And so eventually I get trained in EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a somatic technique, right? It's experiential.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a lot better. And so then as a marriage therapist, I was like, I'm going to add EMDR to marriage therapy. Nobody's doing that, but I'm going to do it because people are going to their marriages will actually get better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that worked, but only so much.
Okay.
And so then I start studying the law of attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And how we need to, that we're all vibrational creatures, that everything has energy and like calls to like. And the more we rehearse our pain, the more we draw pain and negativity to us. And I was like, well, that is going to take some time for me to digest, to really think about my chosen career path, because here I'm inviting people to come talk about their pain, which I believe is essential. And so where is that fine line between rehearsing my pain and staying stuck versus expressing my pain for the purpose of releasing it and completing a healing process? So that took a whole bunch of kind of inner research and work. And then fast forward to the last couple of years where I stumbled across constitutional homeopathy. And that's a mouthful right there. And this is a type
homeopathy. Okay.
Constitutional homeopathy. And this is a type of natural energy healing that goes straight to the energetic body. So, right, therapy stays in the conscious mind where we're not really getting into reprogramming the subconscious. So EMDR and EFT, these things help us really root out the negative beliefs we have about ourselves that cause us to attract the wrong partner and attract painful experiences. But homeopathy goes even deeper to the energetic body. Now, please have questions, because I have a feeling that everything I said makes very little sense.
No. So I do have questions, but I wanted to hear you sort of like,
lay it out,
expound on it. We know, right, that the reason that talk therapy doesn't work in healing trauma is that trauma doesn't live in our minds; it lives in our bodies. And so will you sort of talk a little bit about like what EMDR is and what EFT is, and why they work to the degree that you believe that they do, and then how the constitutional homeopathy actually goes deeper into this?
Okay, so EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, and it involves tapping on particular meridians, primarily in the face, head, body, whatever, right? And those particular meridians help us process stuck emotion in the soma or in the body. And when you pair that with the awareness of the negative beliefs you have about yourself and your lived experience, and then kind of reach for a positive belief that you'd like to have about yourself or your lived experience, you're kind of on this story arc of reprogramming your beliefs while tapping on these meridians, right? So tapping on the meridians is what activates exactly what you said, the stuff that's stuck in the body. But then we also use the mind to help create the shift, right? We have to experience the shift in the mind also.
Okay.
And so most EFT tappers, whether it's the tapping app or it's Brad Yates, or there's so many brilliant folks out there, right? They're going to start by acknowledging the pain, acknowledging the negative belief that you have about yourself, that you're not good enough, or you're not worthy, or you're not safe, or whatever it is, right? And then as that pain starts to ebb, through the series of tapping, then they'll start to introduce the idea that you are worthy, that you are enough, that you can learn to be safe, that you can learn to trust. Because if we start out with the positive thought in the beginning while you're in boatloads of pain, the body's like, no way. Yeah, right. And then there's immediate resistance. And from a law of attraction standpoint, right, it all shuts down. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's EFT.
Which is, by the way, I just want to say that, like, people started talking about EFT I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, it started
gaining
and
traction. Sure.
I started and I tried to do it and I didn't understand it because no one was actually explaining it in a way that I felt, because I guess we weren't having the conversations about trauma living in the body. And
yet.
they're just like, say this and tap and then say that. And I was like, I don't get it. And I'm the kind of person like, I need to understand it.
Yeah, that's
Like,
relatable.
if I understand it, I am all in. If I don't get it, I'm like, you can't just be like, just do this. Trust me. I'm like, but I don't. So give me the science, motherfucker.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your explanation is actually very helpful in that. So thank you.
I love that.
That made it make a lot more sense. Certainly in the context also of what I now know about,
it's easier for these things to click now because
it's in our consciousness. It's in our conversation. Yeah. Okay. And so EMDR, really weird from the outside, right?
Yeah. I mean, people who have never done EMDR and then they come to their first couple of sessions, I do it all day long. It's super fun. They walk away from their first couple of sessions like, I can't even describe what I just experienced. It's such a powerful, and it's not the only one. There are we could talk about so many different somatic processing techniques, right? So I'm not here to say it's the only way. So EMDR basically uses, have you ever heard of the butterfly tap? Okay. Yep. So the butterfly tap is a type of bilateral stimulation. It's just, two-sided stimulation.
Yep. So for those who don't know, you're crossing your arms in front of you and you're tapping your left shoulder with your right hand and your right shoulder with your left hand, and you're alternating.
Yep.
Yes. And so bilateral stimulation is important because
it helps say this not too sciencey, Dawn.
No, say it sciencey. They're
it's sciencey. Yeah. So, okay, if we were sitting in an EMDR training with advanced clinicians, right, they would say that it activates the adaptive information processing part of the brain. So what does that mean? It means that our brains, they're creatures of habit, right? And once they've got an idea in their head, our minds, right, then they like to run with that, and they have confirmation bias, and they want to, and the reticular activating system is the part of the brain there's a bundle of nerves, and once it's programmed to believe I'm not good enough, then it's constantly scanning the environment for evidence that you're not good enough, right? And that reticular activating system is what we're ultimately attempting to reprogram, right? But so when we add bilateral stimulation, which is PS, what you're doing when you're walking, when you're running, if you have a drum kit at home, when you're drumming, maybe.
Sure. Totally.
It helps the brain desensitize and reprocess memories, old painful memories that have gotten hung up, as though then is now, right? So people think that flashbacks are picture memory, but it's often body sensations, right? That body keeps the score concept that I have a flashback, meaning I all of a sudden am in a room where I am flooded with anxiety and I don't quite know why, but it's really tied to something from way back then. It's because the body is still like, oh, now isn't now, bitches, now is then. Right. And it gets confused, right? And so when we add bilateral stimulation, it helps desensitize those overwhelming feelings. It helps reprocess them and create time orientation, like, oh, maybe now is now. And then it also helps that adaptive piece reach for new information to prove that now is now, and that now is safe, and that I am good enough now. So, for instance, I'll get a bunch of folks who have worked with a lot of coaches or have read a lot of really great books or have gone to some 12-step meetings, and they've got lots of information, right?
Yes.
They've learned so much about codependency. They know so much, but they can't get it to integrate. Okay. So then we add EMDR, and those folks are my favorite folks because we're not just desensitizing the traumas, but the brain then is preloaded with all this adaptive information, healthy information. And when we add that bilateral stimulation, it like opens up that channel in the mind and in the brain, and it reaches for that healthy information and it starts to integrate.
Interesting. Yes. And so EMDR is actually like the bilateral stimulation they discovered totally randomly, right?
Right. Because Francine Shapiro, she was going for a walk in Central Park or something like that, right? And something suddenly shifted, and she like desperately trying to figure out what was I doing in that moment when it shifted. And that's what she figured out, is that her eyes were moving. Yes.
Right. And so EMDR is this it's like you're tracing it's like old hypnosis, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
But it's going like TikTok back and forth.
Correct. But as they
Yeah.
did more and more research into bilateral stimulation, they figured out that it can be so many, you can use sounds. I think that if
Right.
you use the Calm app, like now they have bilateral tracks in there.
Oh,
So you
cool.
can use sound, you can use physical tapping, you can use eye movement. But by then she had already named the theory and it was
I see.
already
Yeah.
being professionally researched in academia, and she couldn't change the name, but she had
Oh.
naming regrets. Fun fact.
Oh, interesting. I did not know this. Okay,
Yeah.
this is fascinating. Fascinating. Okay. And so this is sort of, I love how you, so again, another thing that I'm like, I call bullshit until I understand the science, right?
Mhm.
It brings me back to, we were talking about the law of attraction,
Mhm.
right? And so the law of attraction is not just like sitting on a rock and, thinking about the thing that you
Mm-mm.
want, and then it comes to you magically, right?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
The law of attraction actually folds into this because with the bilateral
100%.
stimulation or the tapping, you're then layering in positive thoughts where there were
Correct.
negative.
We're desensitizing negative beliefs, which are low vibration, which means you're attracting low vibrational stuff.
Mhm.
And it's installing basically, right? Like high vibe ideas about self. And so it's actually law of attraction in action.
Sciencey. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to, I don't know, we'll see where we go. Okay, we are back. So we were talking about EMDR, law of attraction, tapping,
And why therapy is dead.
and why therapy is dead. Okay, so
All right.
now we've sort of done all that, but I want to go to therapy is dead because
Plot twist.
right, all of these things are done with a therapist, but therapy's
right?
dead.
Right.
Wait, what?
Right. And when I think of therapy, right? Let's go back to, did
Mhm.
you ever watch Mad Men?
I
What's his
didn't
name?
watch it, yeah.
Draper, and he sent his
Draper,
wife to
yeah.
the psychiatrist, and then the psychiatrist would, and listen, we have forefathers of mental health who I applaud. It is wonderful that our forefathers of mental health, the psychoanalysts and the Freudian and whatever, Jungian theory, these are all very, very important things because we started exploring our mental health and we started talking
Absolutely.
about it, at least in therapists' offices, right? But that was then, and this is now. And now we talk about everything on TikTok, and sometimes we're not even fully clothed when we do it. And so it's like the need has changed, right? Back then we were so suppressed and repressed.
Yes.
That just even going to a therapist's office and speaking truths or speaking our lived experience is a better way to say it.
Okay.
Had healing benefits. It did because we were so buttoned up.
Yes.
But now fast forward how many decades, we're talking too much about our pain. Way too much, and it's reinforcing it. And we've become kind of consummate victims. And so rather than shifting and growing and really having agency with our own pain and really understanding my feelings, my job, we just are like, my feelings, your job, Miss Therapist.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so, yes, we do EFT tapping and EMDR with a therapist, but also one of the things that I think is fundamental and far more meaningful about me, when I say therapy is dead, is that historically, when you go to a therapist, you're really relying on the therapist's assessment of a situation and their kind of guidance of you down a path.
Sure.
And that's going to be biased by a therapist's own lived experience. With things like EFT and EMDR, and then when I tell you about homeopathy, we're really relying on our own subconscious mind and our own body's design to heal itself based on a divine creator, right? A creative intelligence that created this whole shebang. So it's like, oh, we're not just kind of creating little therapy minions, right? To go live life the way we say to live it because we're therapists and we're experts in mental health. It's like, no, I'm empowering you to reprogram your subconscious mind while I hold space for you so that you can really be digging deep into your intuition, cultivating your own relationship with a higher power, and live in a way where you can find your God-given path and not the one that I'm influencing.
It sounds so nice.
Doesn't it? So it's like an empowering way to do mental health rather than you feeling like you have to rent your mental health from me. I'm expensive. I don't want you to rent your mental health from me. I want to teach you. Yes, I'm going to facilitate. I'm going to push exactly where it needs to be pushed, right? But I want to teach you how to bilateral yourself. I want to show you how we were designed to self-heal. That the job of a therapist or a facilitator or an integrative healer, as I like to call myself, is to remove blocks so that the nervous system, so that each cell of our body that is already programmed and knows what to do can just complete its own healing process.
It's almost like you're saying that you want to put yourself out of work, or you want your clients, so a lot of therapists, like essentially you could be in therapy for the rest of your life, right? But it sounds like you actually want to graduate.
Amen.
Your clients,
and I do all the time. I'm frequently on a wait list, and I frequently work through that wait list very quickly because I graduate a lot of people, and they come back every now and then for like little tune-ups, right? But
sure.
Yeah. So, and I'm someone who had a lot of chronic illness. And because of that, I had a lot of health anxiety because I had to rely on doctors to write prescriptions and to tell me what to do next and to do tests. And our medical system, we know this, that all right there is enough to give anyone a panic attack.
Listen.
And so tell me.
I can't with US healthcare. I just can't. Yes. Okay. And so, sorry, I kind of interrupted you on that, but yes, it is the US because I just had a panic attack while you were talking about it.
Well, I was saying it. We invoked one. Right. And so, our government and whatever, they think the pharma, they own diagnoses, they own the solution, they own whatever, but I'm about to drop some truth bombs, some unpopular truth bombs. So fast forward to, I've done all this different type of professional advancement. I was a patient of EMDR, all the things, right?
Yeah, right.
And I still have cluster headaches, rheumatoid arthritis, like the things. And so one holiday season, I'm scrolling Instagram and I see a homeopath post something about the burnt out mom during the holiday season, right? And I stopped in my tracks. Like,
what? I don't know.
And I dig into the post and it just made sense to me. And I will explain, right? But fast forward, what homeopathy has become for me is, and I've layered it into my practice now, and I talk about it a lot on my podcast, Dear Divorce Diary, but it is an additional extension of, we were given everything we needed to heal here in this world. We didn't need to recreate the wheel, right? We just needed to know where to look, and we needed to be willing to be humble enough to find it, right?
Yeah.
So homeopathy, approximately 250 years ago, there was this preeminent doctor of the time. His name was Hahnemann. And preeminent doctoring 250 years ago, I'm pretty sure was like bloodletting and leeches or some shit like that.
Yeah.
So say what you will about that. But what they were doing was treating malaria with cinchona bark. What is cinchona bark? I don't know, but it's a tree. And it was really effective at reducing and eliminating the symptoms of malaria. So this Dr. Hahnemann, he gets this itch in the back of his brain and he's like, well, I'm healthy. I don't have malaria. What happens if I eat the cinchona bark? Brilliant. I respect his courage. And so
I know.
I kind of learned like that too. Like, what happens if I touch the stove? Anyways, so he eats the cinchona bark and I bet you could sort of guess what happens next. He develops all the symptoms of malaria, but he didn't have malaria. And so he was like, this is where homeopathy was born. This idea that like calls to like, that the curse is the cure. That if you get bit by a snake, the anti-venom got venom in it. So then he's like, well, let me just start eating a whole bunch of things and writing down or proving the symptoms. I know, right? And
I used himself as a test subject.
And thousands and thousands and thousands of people followed him doing it too, right? It's called proving. They started recording what happens when you ingest certain substances, the symptoms that it causes, and then matching those to disease profiles. Okay. Now, this went deep, far, and wide, and there's so much to say about this. But how homeopathy is prepared today is it's diluted so much so that there's no actual content left in the remedies. It's the energy signature of the content. And that's hard for us to wrap our mind around unless you study the law of attraction, for instance, and you understand that everything is made of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And where energy goes, energy flow, where your attention. And so it's like, can we believe that an energetic remedy can help heal grief after divorce? Can we take that leap of faith that an energy remedy based on my profile of symptoms, finding the matching profile in nature, can help me heal my attachment style, stop that weeping stage of divorce grief? Yes. So the most common homeopathic remedy that I find that people know about, where they're like, oh, I've heard of that, is arnica.
Yes.
Right?
And
you get a bruise.
Yeah. You get a bruise, you put some arnica on, I have arnica, in the little blue tube. I have the
exactly.
arnica
That's
pellets.
the little blue tubes that's my sweet
that's
spot right there.
That's homeopathy.
That's homeopathy. Yes.
Yeah.
So just some interesting backstory about arnica.
Mm-hmm.
Where arnica grows is in very high elevation alpine locations where you would have to work hard and potentially slip and fall to collect it.
Right.
It's like if you were pursuing arnica, you would probably need it once you got there. But
right.
that's how our planet is designed, right? Is everything is already here. We're just in a space where we're working harder to destroy it than we are sometimes to, protect it and use it. So arnica is, it's something that's well indicated for bruises and for overuse injuries.
So when I take my little white pellets of arnica from my little blue tube, you're telling me that there's actually not arnica in it. It's the energetic properties of arnica.
Yeah. You know how Olaf said in Frozen 2 that water has memory?
Uh-huh.
Basically that. I know. Olaf is sage. He is sage and wise. Yeah. They dilute it so far, and they have a way of potentizing it. There are different potencies of arnica, right? You probably, if you have a blue tube, it's a lower potency. There are much deeper potencies. And so let me give you the profile of a remedy that I love. Oh, the one that I found when I was scrolling that holiday season.
Yeah. Okay.
Sepia or sepia.
Uh-huh.
They're all in Latin, so it's a lot to learn. It's cuttlefish ink. So let's think about when a cuttlefish, it's a very feminine remedy. It acts on the ovaries. It's when a cuttlefish is going to ink something, right? What is it doing? It's trying to escape becoming prey. And it puts its ink out into the sea, and it basically blinds and confuses and its attacker, and it's able to escape, right?
Okay.
So a woman who is burnt out and who is better from isolating herself. She is feeling brain fog. She cannot think. She needs space. She is overstimulated, and she really feels better when she escapes. The energy signature that is a really good fit for her is this cuttlefish ink, sepia.
So it's literally like, I mean, I can feel that energetically, like, everyone get the fuck away from me. Everyone get the fuck away from me.
Bingo. So we had Taco Tuesday a couple of weeks ago. It was probably Saturday, but you get the point. My daughter had a little friend over, and the mom came, and she was just sitting, and we were, chatting, and she's talking about how burnt out she is. And I was like, I'll be right back. And I came with a purple tube. Said, here, have these. And the next morning she texted me and she's like, Dawn, I have not had coffee today, and I have more energy than I have had in, I can't tell you how long.
Wow.
And I was like, I know. It's such a gift.
Wow.
And so I know, right?
Okay. You might be converting me. Because again, like I said, like with the tapping, where I was like, I don't know how that works. That doesn't make it doesn't
let's talk about
sense.
that. Yes,
I'm not bought in, right?
Yeah, so let's talk about why.
It's not going to work, right?
And P.S. If you Google constitutional homeopathy, you might get some interesting things, right? But if you just Google, does homeopathy work? You are going to get all the major typical medical outlets telling you that it's hogwash,
right?
And that it's dangerous. And I would encourage anyone doing that to follow the money, right? For who funds those particular blog posts, right?
Right.
So the difference between EMDR, EFT, homeopathy, and why, well, I use them all together because together is like a supercharged solution that just like, I don't know. If you can't get better like that, I don't know. It wasn't in your cards.
Uh-oh.
But I am someone who has had enough trauma, right? I had childhood trauma. I got married, ended up divorced because I tried to think my way out of it. Just like we said earlier in the episode, I really tried to think my way out of not getting divorced and making the right choice.
Yeah.
And so I'm a pretty dissociative, historically, I dissociate pretty easily. It's
I don't know what you're
hard
talking about.
for me to feel. You feel
I don't
attacked.
relate. I don't relate to that at all. Yeah, I feel very attacked, Dawn.
So if you ask me to process something in EMDR or EFT, I'm going to intellectualize it.
Uh-huh.
I have trouble getting into the soma of something.
Uh-huh.
And so homeopathy bypassed my willful brain. And I started getting better like that.
Okay.
And I was like,
you
shit.
know what? Shit, exactly. I'm like, shit. All right, we'll be right back. We're going to take another break and we will be right back. You know, I am really fascinated by this. So, okay, I just have another homeopathy question.
Yeah.
So if, let's say, someone
asking for a friend,
was on like antidepressants for a long time because they felt very necessary, and or on like ADHD meds because trauma brain, which basically looks like ADHD, right? All of that stuff.
Yes. You're on it. Yeah, you know your stuff,
right? I know my stuff. Where do we find homeopathy for that? And how does that? Like, how do we do that safely? Let's say, for example, I was like, you know what? Maybe I want to like go off my meds and try this. Like, how does one do that safely?
Okay, I'm going to we just opened a new loop and it's the most important loop you could have opened. But I'm, again, truth bombs. I don't think it's common knowledge that some of the most significant side effects of antidepressant medication is depression and suicidality.
Yes. So, it can be. It can be. I will say in my case, like it's absolutely saved me from that. Like, right. If the wrong dosage, the wrong med, like absolutely.
Yes.
Right.
And listen, post homeopathy, I've been able to completely wean off of Klonopin. So, right. Therapist over here, right. I didn't want to be on Klonopin anymore. And so, yes, I have had the experience of successfully weaning off of, whether it's psych meds or medication for the arthritis or you name it, right? So yeah, safely is the key, right? We want to go slow and steady. And homeopathy is a very slow burn anyways, because the body, what it's actually doing, well, let me see if I can paint this picture. Okay. So our bodies were designed to heal themselves. Right. We were designed to heal from traumas. We were designed, maybe with some intervention, right? You break a bone, you need to set it or whatever, right? But we were designed to heal. And so if the bone is broken, the setting of it is the creating alignment. It's the removing what's blocking it from healing, right? Is realigning it. Now we've removed the block. Now it can heal. In homeopathy, we look at the body as, innately intelligent, that it knows what to do, and that all we got to do is find and remove the block and it will complete healing on its own. Now, how we can kind of spot the difference between an acute homeopathic case and a constitutional homeopathic case is like, if I stub my toe and I need arnica, that's acute. It happened just now, right? I have a boo-boo. Okay. Something calling for constitutional care is anything that's become chronic.
Yes.
Chronic symptoms are a sign that there is somewhere blocked energy in the body-mind.
Okay.
And so when homeopathy targets that via like calls to like, right? Via like this similar energetic signature, it removes the block and then the body starts really healing at a cellular energetic level. But we can imagine that takes time for that cellular regeneration and it prioritizes in order of survival. Top down, from the top of the head down to the feet and from the inside out, right? So skin is last. Skin on your feet would be last.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's why my scar from my ankle surgery is taking so damn long to do.
There you go. That
there we go.
It. So many things to explain today. So there are a number of key remedies for ADD and homeopathy, that energy remedy, it doesn't care if it was caused by CPTSD or if it's like you were born with it. It's going to treat it either way. It's going to treat autism. It's going to treat depression. It's going to treat suicidality. And yeah, we want to work with slowly and intentionally and mindfully. And I got to tell you, I think one of the reasons, there are a lot of reasons homeopathy has fallen out of popularity in modern time.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, in the early 1900s, we had homeopathic psychiatric hospitals in this country. In India, in France, in the UK, homeopathy is very, very popular, massive part of their healthcare system. So we can kind of look back in our own country's history and look at the influences that had it fall out of popularity. But we also can see that homeopathy is a slow process. And that what we're doing is we're unsticking what's been stuck. And what happens sometimes is a purge of symptoms, a purge of discomfort, a purge of emotions that have been clogged up.
Okay.
So let's go back to codependency. I'm going to say things that now I'm going to lose your audience. Right here is where I'm just going to call it where I lose everybody.
Okay. Okay.
So, my favorite remedy for codependency, and I use it frequently myself to help maintain good energetic health as a practitioner, as a healer, because I sit with folks and their
you need boundaries,
stories all day, right? And that energy, like it or not, you know, I have my selenite sitting here and I have my protection spray and whatever, right? And I have my rituals, but either way, right? Energy is energy and it permeates. There is a remedy that I use very frequently to clear energetically, and it is the energy signature of Cancer. Now, bear with me. I know your face, your eyes. Right?
Yes. Okay.
When Cancer invades the body, what happens? The Cancer takes over the cell, and the cell no longer knows what is itself and what is the Cancer.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Okay.
So it's the remedy of internal boundaries. So it's a great remedy also for kids who had to grow up too fast, who grew up with an overdeveloped sense of responsibility, right? All those underpinnings of sexual abuse, right? Because what happens in sexual abuse, right? A person gets invaded and loses their boundary. And that's what Cancer does to a cell.
Right. And from a codependency standpoint, right? Like all codependency has that root, right? In that
Of self-sacrifice.
trauma of whether it's overt abuse or enmeshment, right? Which is that thing. That's okay. That that makes sense to me.
That one it scares people, right?
And I'm like, no, but I can get it from like, because that the trauma that caused it, I will speak from my own experience. The trauma I think in my life that caused that was that Cancer-like invasion and taking over of myself.
Yes.
And not actually being allowed to have a self.
Be yourself. Yeah. I have chills. Exactly. So that is a remedy that in the last couple of years that I use to maintain those healthy, just naturally, those boundaries. I'm just clearer. And it's not that I never wobble, but just naturally clearer in a sustainable way. What's mine and what's yours?
Interesting.
It's not that nothing triggers me. I still get triggered. Like stuff still happens, but it's just so much less, and recovery is so much quicker, and it doesn't take its toll. And
this is so fascinating. Okay. So let's sort of like bring it around back to divorce for a second, right? Because like, how are we using all of this to heal from the trauma and the grief and all of it that is associated with divorce?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist who's been divorced. And so I have but when I got divorced was kind of like I mentioned earlier, that knock on the head that's like, oh, you tried to think your way out of this. I guess you need to get well. So I just immersed myself as a therapist in therapy, group therapy, Al-Anon, yoga, personal development, all the things, right? And so as I was immersed in all of that, I really found myself for the first time ever, right? For the first time ever, met myself and just started thriving in ways that I had never even imagined. It's when I opened my private practice, and it's where I started, just trusting my own instincts and believing in myself in ways that I never thought possible. So I have this like love affair with this moment in time for especially women, not just women, but especially women, right? That this moment where you get divorced is where you could literally start to manifest your greatest life. And that sounds like hocus pocus. I know you know this though, that it's just like this season could be the season of your greatest manifestation.
100%.
What I find with my clients is that I tend to be the 3rd through 12th healer that they work with, because they'll have tried all the things that aren't EMDR, that aren't somatic processing, that aren't homeopathy, that didn't go deep enough. And then they pick partners that end up being some haunting of the other partner that they picked, didn't reprogram the subconscious mind enough, or just still end up struggling from a nervous system perspective, right? And they're like, I'm missing something, Dawn. Something's missing, and you seem to know what it is. So for divorced women, right, I talk about all these things on my podcast, Dear Divorce Diary. We talk about nervous system regulation, attachment styles in the context of, boundaries and manifesting and kind of connecting all these dots that we've talked about today. I definitely talk about some of my favorite homeopathic remedies. Somebody emailed me this weekend, and, she subscribed to my newsletter or whatever. And she's like, this is what I'm experiencing. What do I do? And I'm like, give me the details of what it feels like to be you right now. And I knew which remedy to recommend right away. There are a handful of remedies that I really recommend for women going through divorce. And I also teach them how to do bilateral stimulation and integrate that with their journaling. Because if you can't get to a therapist and you're triggered, which happens to all of us, and you could process it right there.
Right. That's right.
Right.
Because I have that, like I get triggered and have like some massive event. And then I'm like, emailing my therapist and like, it's a week.
Which emailing your therapist, right, just puts you back into the mind, trying to explain it and getting verbal feedback, right? So I love to teach women how to especially target loneliness. I have this immersive journaling process called the Loneliness Roadmap, where they can use bilateral stimulation and some journaling to work through those moments. And then, add some remedies, add a little sepia if it's burnout, right? The single mom who now is having to juggle working and the kids and all the things, I'd say sepia. If she can't stop weeping, I'd say Ignatia. If she feels frozen, if she can't even cry, she's just angry and kind of numb, it's natrum. There's just these pieces to pull from that just help shift things.
I'm kind of into this now. You've converted me. Antsy, right? No, I mean, it's fascinating because I feel like I love your approach, right? I am very much into the balance between the science and the woo.
Oh,
right?
That's me. Yes. Yes.
Right. And that's why you are really you're really like speaking my language, and like, and there's like this woo stuff that I'm always like, that doesn't make sense. But
it's not woo, right? We've marginalized woo because woo doesn't sell pharmaceuticals, right? So we've marginalized it so that it doesn't compete with their markets. It's maybe a cynical thing to say, but
No, I think you're right. And I think it's important because it is actually scientific. It's just not like, it's just not modern pharma
easily
scientific.
understood.
That's right.
I know, people get weirded out sometimes about, are you sure this remedy is safe kind of thing? And like, I'm all for that, right? Have healthy skepticism in this world, like be healthy skeptic. Amen.
Yes.
But it's fascinating to me how quickly someone will take a prescription when you read the side effects, right? But will be nervous to take a homeopathic remedy. And I think it's just a function of what we've been exposed to over decades. That's it.
I mean, and also, right, to like, just be really clear, like I definitely feel that my antidepressants basically saved my life for a good period of time. Like
relatable,
100%.
Very relatable. Yes. I started taking antidepressants when I was 21 and had just graduated from college and was working for the Department of Children and Families removing children from their, right? It's a natural prescription for,
yes.
That's
right.
But was this mainstream then? Would I have ever been on an antidepressant? No. I would have, right? I would have gone to see a homeopath had it been mainstream.
That's right.
And sepia, going back to that remedy, same thing, helps women recover from birth control. It's a remedy that really helps women recover from years of suppressing their cycle.
Hormones. Yes,
you and I have a lot in common. Like I spent years on bioidenticals, and we see the world very, very similarly.
Yep. I'll be calling you my friend. All right. This is just like, I feel like we could talk for hours, but why don't you tell everyone where they can find you? And you also have you've got something for them. You've got the post-divorce roadmap, the 21 days of guided journaling, which you said.
So that's like a 3-week immersive journaling, where it's a little more basic. That's a little more basic. Actually, that's a paid deal though, but it's immersive, right? I teach you how to journal. I give you this, I teach you how to optimize your brain for journaling. Because how many of us have that post-divorce brain fog and they can't think and they don't know what to write? But I teach you how to do a body scan. I teach you how to get into the soma. I teach you how to incorporate that into your journaling, this playlist to play that's going to optimize that, mirror messages, phone screens. It's like wraparound support for that. And our homeopathic suggestions built in also already. Here's the links. Take them, run with them. And then the kind of more advanced journaling that's completely free is the loneliness roadmap.
Right. Okay, great. Yeah. And so all of this is available where? Where can people find you?
My website is mycoachdawn.com.
Okay.
And from there, you can get to the podcast, which in the show notes, every show note has these links. It's all on my website. Is that fair?
Okay. That is 100% fair. Yes. And it is mycoachdawn.com.
Yep.
I love it. Dawn, this has been so amazing and wonderful and mind-blowing and enlightening. And I am excited. So thank you
so much for letting me share. Like, I have to tell you, I'm so passionate about it. We just got back from a week-long vacation where I took all of my homeopathic texts with me and all the remedies so that all the people I could see, I could offer them. So like, I'm just it just lights me up so much to give people their health back. And to empower them, and especially in this moment in time where women are feeling so defeated and women in general. I just listened to a recent episode you did, right? Where it's like the disempowered woman. Yeah. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at The Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time, and until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.